in the global politics, very different kind of development is going on. Very different kind of things is happening. It is unexpected. Before, when India conducted his nuclear test 1998, Pokhran, the United States of America sanctioned India with utmost sanction which India has ever faced, and they denied access of the technology to India, even though they supported Pakistan at the same time. And on the same time, the Pakistan also does the nuclear test. But the United States of America kept his focus towards India. Neither he condemned nor he imposed any tough sanction on Pakistan, but they supplied the weapons, a upgraded kind of weapons which Pakistan could never have developed, but they supplied and they used against India. On that power, on that strength, the Pakistan actually unleashed the war against India, 4 war consistently from 65 to 1998, when late Musharraf, the president of Pakistan, former late president of Pakistan, Pervez Musharraf, conducted Kargil war at the strength of America. This is the actually history, the bitter history. Nobody can deny in India that the 1971 war, when Pakistan and India was in war, the Russian, the European, and the France and German and the US naval ships came into the Arabian Sea to pressure the India. This is the bitter history of United States and India's relationship. But what happens when Mr. US President Barack Obama and my former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh signed a civil nuclear deal in 2008. Afterwards, the relationship of India and US a little bit gone into the cold water. So if you look at after my Prime Minister, current Prime Minister Narendra Modi joined into the office from 2014 May. Afterwards, the relationship with the United States has changed. But the global agenda from 1991 United Soviet Union, when withdrawn from the Central Asia and breakdown of the Soviet Union in 1991, so it created a gap and changed the equation of the international politics, and India adjusted into the international politics from 1991, a liberalization of the Indian economy on the direction of IMF, and the 1998 test of nuclear test actually showed the India's strength to the world, and technological strength achieved by the India is definitely a very important one, because strength, respect, strength is philosophy given by the Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, which India accepted because he was the president from 2002 to 2007. So he drove the India's policy towards many different kind of directions. And the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is now the world's most influential leader. He's actually changing the India's foreign policy, and Mr. Jaishankar is also the very sophisticated kind of foreign minister and very seasoned diplomat. He was a civil servant for I think the 35 or 40 years. So he is a very, kind of very hard people. He knows the world politics, how they evolve, and they are now cooperating. The equation of the world order has changed. Now is the big threat is the China, and people are focusing on the China's strength, how they can counterbalance with the China. So major issue now has shifted. Global goalpost of Western world has shifted towards China. Now to contain the China, and India is the best. India could be the best partner for the Western world, because of if you global forecast, look at the global forecast of IMF. IMF already predicted that India up to the 2030 or 35, or you can 2050. India would be the second largest economy with 35 trillion economy and $15,000 per capita income would be after 25 years, when India would be completed his the period which is going on the 25 years period which is been taken by the government. So 2047 India would be the $15,000 per capita income. So the economic future shifted towards the Asia, and China is the biggest threat. Very recently the Canadian and Indian Indo-Pacific dialogues has happened, and with the foreign minister affairs level, and they said that the China is the biggest international disruptor of rule-based order. So it is the biggest threat. So if G7 countries are approaching towards India, because India has the future, India has the strength, India is the third largest military and naval forces. So India has a strength to contain the China. India could be the best partner. So that's why the United States of America is actually developing India's relationship in a quite good manner. So that's why the Secretary of State Karen Donfred of the United States, U.S. Assistant Secretary Karen, he said that India is a consequential partner. Their vision for Indo-Pacific is actually relied on the India's relationship. So when I look at the Russia-India relationship, the India's 50% of arsenals came from Russia, and Russia is the biggest arms supplier to India, and we have a friendship relationship since 1971, when India first time signed the relationship with Russia, friendship relationship with Russia, and for 20 years, and now it has been revived. And India's relationship with Russia is quite good and based on trust. So to beat the dependence of India on the US, on the Russia, United States is, I would blame that United States is alluring India and attracting towards his camp. But India knows that India has a policy called non-alignment movement. India has been saying consistently that the India will follow the neutral path when the world is on the two blocks are in the war. So when India's or my national interest, I would go with the United States and his camp up to that mark where my national interest is served. I am not saying that I will go into every war to defend the United States of America, their interest. But the relationship will continue up to the level that would serve the both interest of the countries. So the ahead of the U.S. Secretary of State of Energy is coming into India. Actually, Ukraine has demanded that India and China must have to be sanctioned as a secondary sanction on these countries because of they are buying the Russian oil. But the United States said that we are comfortable with India's position, given that the purchase of Russian oil is at rates below the price cap. There is a price cap $60 per barrel. They have made their Western countries has made their a kind of cap. The seaborne Russian oil can only be buy the countries with $60, less than $60. That would be. I will not oppose them. I will not sanction them if they follows the $60 cap rule. While responding to call by the Ukrainian law minister actually said that the United States must have to sanction India and China for buying Russian oil. But US denied. I can't do it. Even though India is not a participant in the price cap coalition, India has effectively used its negotiating leverage with Russia, that I will buy your oil because of you see that Russia and India trade relation was not up to that mark before the war. Only $5.6 billion they were trading, but now it has come to the level of $28 billion per month. A relationship has come up to that level because of India importing Russian oil, seaborne Russian oil, up to the $28 billion. India is one of the first ranker of the importing of Russian oil. So the equation has now benefiting little bit India and the trade with Russia. And Russia is happy with supplying these kind of negotiated oil settlement, while it drives from the price cap and the fact that large portions of global market are no longer accessible to Russia, to drive down the prices that it plays for Russia crude oil. So he actually denied, the Hindu newspaper publishing that the rising oil imports. Mr. Pirate, who was part of the briefing call with the Indian journalist about his visit to India next week. Actually, he is coming to India. Pirate said that he would travel to Mumbai, Pune and Delhi to advance the strategic energy relationship and discuss plans for energy transition to renewable energy. Actually, India is 175 gigawatt, 175 plus gigawatt actually renewable energy generation by India's capacity. Relationship, he said that transition of relationship we will discuss. He added that while India and United States do not always share the same policy approaches. He admitted that India and United States is not following the same policy, do not always the same policy approach. With regard to the Russia and Ukraine, the two countries share a commitment to uphold the international rule-based order that is founded on the respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty. Despite several calls to reduce oil purchase from Russia, the Indian government has repeatedly asserted that it will buy oil from wherever it needs. According to the latest figures from January, India has imported around 1.27 million barrel per day. 1.27 million barrel per day of Russian Ural oil, a 30-fold jump, 30-fold jump from last January when it was around 40,000 barrel per day. 1.27 million dollar per day. It's a very big number. Russia, which was earning the 70th biggest oil supplier to India, has become the highest importer for past few months. It now accounts for about 28% of India's oil imports, up from 0.2% before the invasion of Ukraine. India was importing from Russia 0.2% of its oil needs, but it is now importing 28% of India's oil need. It has gotten an opportunity to use the Russian oil for his economy. India does need, of course, because we have only $2,000 per capita income, and the most income is owned by the 10% of the people of India. So many are below the poverty line. 800 million people below the poverty line in India, So India does need a cheaper oil. So this is golden opportunity, but the oil price in India is not translated into that much. They are importing at a lower cost, but they have not reduced, and the domestic retail price of oil price in India have reduced, not translated into the concession. No secondary sanction. When asked, the American official rejected the call by the senior Ukrainian lawmaker and head of its Foreign Relation Committee for secondary sanction against countries such as China and India that were financing the Russian economy and the Russian military machine. They are blaming that if they are buying Russian oil, then they are actually funding the Russian economy and the Russian military machine. During a visit to Washington, the Ukrainian official called the Indian stand is painful. I want to be clear. We are not looking to sanction India. The US Assistant Secretary saying that we are not looking to sanction India, and our partnership with India is one of the most consequential relationships. Last March, the US had called India's stand on Russia, including its refusal to criticize Russian actions in Ukraine, as deeply disappointing. However, the US official briefing the media made it clear that Washington was now comfortable with the approach that India has taken. all of which means that Vladimir Putin, because of his invasion of Ukraine and his weaponization of energy, has lost what has traditionally been Russia's most valuable and valued market for its oil and gas resources. He is actually saying that the most valued and valuable relationship was the Europe, because before the war, Russia is actually supplying more oil to the European Union, but because of the now sanction has been applied, they are not buying the Russian oil, so that Russia has lost his most valuable economy where he was pumping his oil. I don't know what would be the what would be the word political affair after this end of war. Thank you very much. This was the news the Hindu published and the article I shared with you. Thank you very much.